Welcome, welcome. My name is Peggy Sagers, and thanks for being here today. The goal of this video today is to help you understand French darts. I get lots of questions on them, and let me tell you my thinking on them so that you can really incorporate them in your sewing, and really, I think they're just such a great asset in our sewing. The goal of a dart is to simply take up extra length and extra width in certain places, but not in others. So our base bodice usually has a bust dart and a waist dart. That's the base. Every bodice contains a bust dart and a waist dart. So when they get in to be large, then the distance from the side to the center is shortened because the dart is so large. So the French dart plays a really important role because by definition what the French dart is it's when the bust dart and waist dart are combined in a seam line that starts at the lower third of the bodice. So let me literally take that and kind of go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the bust dart to but not through the bust point. I'm going to cut the waist dart to but not through the bust point. And then I'm going to create where I want the French dart to be. And I want the French dart to start in the lower third side seam. Now remember, just from an engineering perspective, the longer that dart is, the more graceful that dart can be, so that's just a really big advantage. The French darts were really popular in the 50s. They kind of went away. Armani's brought them back. If I had a dress line and I had a dress line, I'd put them in everything because they're so good. So you notice once I close up the bust dart and once I close up the waist dart, the dart that then is left existing is the French dart. It doesn't compromise any fit, it doesn't change any fit, it doesn't improve it, it simply moves it into one space so that I can maneuver it to improve my fit. So if you notice this French dart, it goes all the way to the bust point. Because I don't want my dart to go all the way to the bust point, then I create a dart that's actually going to be sewn on the sewing machine. So I come back from the bust point, maybe 2 inches. That's as long as it's in the bust circle, it's your call. And then I draw in my lines. Now when I draw in my lines, I'm adding seam allowance. So let me show you on this one where I've drawn in my lines and I've actually created seam allowance with these. So there's seam allowance here, but the seam allowance tapers to nothing until finally the seam allowances cross one another from this point to this point. So if it's a large dart, then you're going to get pretty close to the bust point where you're starting to sew. And that's okay, not to the bust point, but to the tip of the dart. So now what I want to do is I actually want to stitch one. But before I stitch it, I want you to look at this garment behind me for a little bit. I'm just going to bring it down. A lot of people say, oh, I don't like darts, or whatever reason. Darts are wonderful. Darts are so awesome because, again, notice even in a stripe how minimally that dart even shows. And if you notice, it's such on the side of the body that you don't even see it from the front of the body. And yet what that dart does is it takes away all the gapping around the armhole. It gives us great fit through the body. It's such a positive. So let's learn how to sew it. And then I'm just going to show you a few adaptations of what you can do if you need to alter that dart in any way. Alright, so this is a little top I'm making. This is pattern 215 Nikki's top. Love this pattern. It's a little crossover in the front. Now what I've done with that is I've built in, because I love French darts so much, when I do the pattern, I've actually built French darts in underneath all this design. So to me, darts are fit, and they should always be in a garment. They're not considered part of the design, they're simply there. But if you notice, here's the French dart and it's been cut but it hasn't been sewn, so I'm actually going to take those 2 legs and that's what I'm going to show you is to how to stitch this silly thing. I see it as being really easy, some of you don't, so my goal is to make it easy for you. If you notice, I'm actually starting from the point of the dart. So just line up the seams. I don't pin it simply because it doesn't allow the machine to do what the machine does best, which is sew and put it together. So I'm simply going to line it up. I'm going to start at the tip. I start at the tip because for so many years we've been taught to do otherwise. And what I notice when women don't start at the tip, and I'll stitch this and then I'll show it to you, is that they see they're coming to the tip and then they want to get right to the tip and they just sew at a horrible, a terrible angle, and they get to the tip, but it's just a terrible job. And then they wonder why it won't lay flat. Well, it won't lay flat because it's sewn at a 90-degree angle. Okay, and you can see that just goes right off onto the bottom. So let me show you what I just did. And I did it in a contrasting thread. So I started at the tip, and that gave me an ability to start very gradual and then work into my 3/8 seam allowance. So when I look at it from this side, it's just nice and smooth and flat. And that's how I would recommend sewing it. Now the other thing I want to look at here for just a minute is any changes I have to make. So let's kind of look at this and see what could be possible. If I need to make this dart bigger, I can merely come outside the lines and make it larger. Very easy to do. And drape this. Don't kind of predetermine it. Just put it on, and if you have gapping at the armhole, to take that gapping away, make it larger. Then add up the amount that you've taken away here and here, and add that to the bottom, and then angle up to nothing here. So just let me give you an illustration of what that would look like, just so you can kind of see it. I would add these two numbers up together, I would add to the bottom, and then I would simply draw it to nothing at center front. You're only adding at the side, not at center front. The one other thing I want to show you that happens a lot is women want to make the hips wider, and when you're doing that, close up this French dart. Because this French dart has seam allowance added, notice that when I close it up, it's a straight line. So close up the dart, add to the side that you need to, add over here, and then open it back up, and then just extend those lines over to meet the additional side seam. Once you get used to French darts, you'll sew them, you'll love them, you'll put them in everything, just as I have. We've included them in so many of our patterns, but we need you to understand them, and we want you to. And any questions you have, just let me know. I'm happy to help. And the reason we're here is to make all of your sewing happy sewing. Thanks so much.